We're going to head over now to Capitol Hill, where Senate Republican leadership, including Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, are speaking. Let's listen.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Here we are. As you may recall, I said back in February that the way forward on the debt ceiling was for the Speaker and the President to sit down and discuss the matter. It took the President months to accept the reality that in divided government, in a debt ceiling situation, it's a time for negotiations. In fact, 7 out of the last 10 debt ceilings have included other items. And now the drama is in the House. We anticipate the bill passing and coming over to us as soon as tomorrow. We had a healthy discussion at lunch about the pros and cons. I would say that most of my members who have objections would like to do more of the things that are already in the bill. I think Speaker McCarthy should be congratulated on capturing a number of priorities. And the best way to look at the difference, 2 years ago, we were in the process of spending $1.9 trillion. And then last year, another $750 billion. So we've gone from one party spending $2.7 trillion in 2 years to a discussion about actually reducing government spending. So I think the American people's decision to change the House has already yielded benefits for our country.
Well, as the leader pointed out, the House will act later today and send something over here that we will have the opportunity to vote on in the Senate, and that is, as the leader described, the process from the very beginning that we said would be necessary to get to a deal in the end, and that is to have the leadership in the House of Representatives, Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, and the President be able to sit down and negotiate something, which they have done. And inasmuch as it isn't everything a lot of us would like to see, there are many of us who think that the defense number is not sufficient. There are some real wins in this, I think, hopefully for the American people, not the least of which is the first reduction in non-defense discretionary spending in a decade. $1.5 trillion reduction in non-defense discretionary spending at a time when defense spending is actually going to go up. And that, too, is something that we have not seen in a long time, where you actually are reducing non-defense spending at the same time you're increasing national security funding. Secondly, the permitting reforms, which you'll probably hear a couple of my colleagues talk about, also are significant in the sense that they get rid of some of the needless delays and that have slowed down a lot of these energy projects around the country that would lower energy costs for the American people. So creating some deadlines there is really critical. Pulling back some of the unspent COVID money, also important, and also some of the money that the Democrats are trying to plus up for enforcement at the IRS, some of those IRS dollars, the tens of billions of dollars and thousands, tens of thousands of additional employees. Some of that's going to be pulled back as well. So I think all in all, the House leadership did their job, put forth their best effort, and produced a product that I hope will get a good vote, not only in the House of Representatives, but also here in the United States Senate.
You've been listening to Republicans speak about the debt ceiling agreement. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell spoke about it earlier and said he anticipates the bill passing. He also said Speaker McCarthy should be congratulated on capturing a number of priorities in the bill.
We also heard from Senate Minority Whip John Thune there. He's busy working the phones, working every member of the GOP Senate caucus, trying to make sure that they do, in fact, have enough votes there. We are going to take a quick break right now, but we're going to continue to monitor these developments on Capitol Hill. You're streaming CBS News, always on.